double book review for you. These are the two books that I finished recently and are very different from what I usually read, so I thought I would give you a little book review on them. The two books I've got to show you are Brain on Fire by Susanna Callahan and Frozen Charlotte by Alex Bell. So I will start with Brain on Fire. That's the one that I finished first. I did give this, I believe, 3 out of 5 stars, but I thought it was an interesting book and really touched on something very interesting that I've not read before, hence why I wanted to share it with you. So this is sort of a self-written, almost biography about Susanna's dealing with sort of mental health. So Susanna sort of calls what happened and her illness Brain on Fire, and it started out with her just having a headache, and then she started to get blackouts, and there was various different symptoms that came along with this. She started to hallucinate. She was just being very erratic and very just not herself. And what Susanna has is an autoimmune disease. There was nothing to really cure it. It was very sort of a rare thing that they don't come across very often. And Susanna says that she essentially from this disease lost about a month of her life. She felt like she loses her identity within it, and you can see that happening because some of the symptoms she had are very sort of unlike her. And I mean, we don't know her that well, we only know her from the book, but you can tell that this disease has a complete hold on her, and she goes to many different doctors and people, and they're very quick to dismiss her, very quick just to provide drugs and think it's just sort of some sort of mental illness. They think she might just be bipolar and suffering that way. And like I said, they provide drugs, and I think doctors sometimes are too quick to dismiss patients by just prescribing them drugs and medications because they see it as the easiest solution. And one thing that we noticed in this was Susanna was very hyper aware and hypersensitive of her symptoms. She thought that at one point she thought it was all down to having bed bugs in her bed, so she got a fumigator in, and he was like, there is nothing here, but she obviously had convinced herself that there was. And like I said, she was getting blackouts, she was becoming very sort of paranoid. And so this book sort of follows her journey from starting off at work with just getting this headache and having to go home, and how quickly it spirals and how quickly her health declines, and at one point she does end up in a hospital. And I find it very amazing how she can recite this time of her life in such great detail, because I think obviously some people are trying to, she's had to go to people and they've had to recite back what was happening at the time, and she had to look back at videos and things, but I don't know how she is managed to just write this book in such great detail. She remembers such in-depth things. That's something I never know about when people write biographies and things, how they can write in such great detail and how everything sticks in their mind so much, because I definitely wouldn't be able to do it. And one thing, obviously, because we are reading this book, we know she does get better by the end of it, and I feel like there was no actual cure, that it was as if one day she sort of just woke up and was okay. But again, then she has to sort of piece her life back together. She's lost essentially a month's worth of her life, and obviously there is that road to recovery that she has to go on. I feel like there wasn't really a big moment that sort of brought on this disease. I thought maybe she would come down to like her having a heart attack or a stroke, something that would mess with the brain, like a big event that they could put it down to. But really it was as quick as just one day sort of waking up with it and it progressing from there. And it was interesting to see how, through lack of knowledge, professionals were failing her. It was as if they failed to want to understand what was going on and was very quick to dismiss with what they thought it could be. So obviously they said she was bipolar, they were giving her medication, they said it was down to her coming off alcohol and all these various things, because they really at the end of the day didn't know what she had. They were just sort of assuming different things, and it was interesting to see how the medical profession fails people when it comes to mental health and things like that. So that's a quick little review basically about what this book is about. I thought it was really interesting. If you are interested in hearing about sort of life events, especially sort of health related, mental, physical, sort of one-off things you don't hear about very often, it is a really, really good book. I'm going to pass this on to my friend because I think she wants to read it next. And yeah, I did enjoy it, but I probably wouldn't read it again now. I've already read it once, so I'm going to pass that along to someone else. And then the second book, which I'm really, really excited to share with you, is Frozen Charlotte by Alex Bell. I think this is a series of Red Eye books, because when I went on Goodreads, there is multiple books sort of within the same genre with very similar covers, but all written by different authors. And I'm interested to read some of the others. I finished this last night and I was so drawn into this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I'll read you the back of the book because that is initially what drew me into it. So it says, Dunvegan School for Girls has closed for many years. Converted into a family home, the teachers and students are long gone, but they left something behind. Sophie arrives at the old schoolhouse to spend the summer with her cousins, brooding Cameron with his scarred hand, strange Lilias with her fear of bones, and Piper who seems just a bit too good to be true. And then there's her other cousin. The girl with a room full of antique dolls, the girl that shouldn't be there, the girl that died. And on the back it says warning, not for younger readers. I would totally agree with that. If you don't like horror, like me personally, hate horror films, can't watch them, freaks me out. This, I was well happy to read. I don't know what it is about horror and mystery books. I really enjoy reading. They don't freak me out and give me nightmares as much as films would. But basically, this is about a girl called Sophie, great name, who at the start, she and her best friend play on a Ouija board in a cafe, and something weird happens and all the lights go out. A girl in the kitchen burns herself and it's all very weird. Sophie sees a girl on a table. She's freaked out by it. And she's with her friend Jay, and Jay asks the Ouija board, when am I going to die? And apparently that's one of the questions you should never ask a Ouija board. And turns out he ended up dying that night. And Sophie thinks it's all related to this girl that she saw. Very confused, and her parents end up going to America, I believe, and so she takes a chance to go and see her family that live up in Scotland, because on the Ouija board they believed that they were speaking to her cousin Rebecca, who had died, and Rebecca's family live up in this place in Scotland that was on the back of the book, in this retired home for girls. So she goes up there, and the Ouija board had obviously told her very scary things, and she goes there, everything seems sort of normal. This book really takes on a journey of its own. I really, really liked it. There is this sort of these myths and legends, but are probably somewhat true, from the old girls' school. They think the house is now haunted by these things called cold Charlottes. Is that what they're called? Frozen Charlottes. So they think the house now is haunted by these little frozen Charlotte dolls, and they're like these tiny little porcelain dolls that the girls at the schools used to make clothes for, but they were like clothes for their funeral. It was all very, very creepy. Things happened at the school, like a headmistress fell down the stairs or was pushed maybe. One girl had pins stuck in her eyes, and they think it was down to these frozen Charlottes. And Sophie's cousin, who's dead, Rebecca, had this huge fascination with them, and that's sort of where it spirals. So Sophie is obviously trying to overcome the sort of passing of her friend Jay, whilst trying to find out what really happened to Rebecca, whether Rebecca is still haunting them. Obviously she wants to find out how she died, because the whole family sort of kept that sort of secret. And I really, really enjoyed this book. Like I said, it's very sort of gruesome, very dark, but yeah, it's definitely not a young adult book. But if you like sort of horror films, this is a good book to read. I thought it was really, really cool, the concept and the fact of these little dolls that were supposedly haunting them all. Really, really enjoyed it. And it definitely kept you on the edge of your seat. You didn't really know how it was gonna end, but overall, really, really enjoyed it. So those are the 2 books I read at the start of this month. I hope you enjoyed these 2 little book reviews. If you've got any questions about books, leave them down below. But I would highly recommend Frozen Charlotte, and I'd love to go on to read a few more of the books in this Red Eye series, because I think they're all sort of slightly horror, mystery, that sort of thing. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got any book recommendations, leave them in the comments down below, because I'm always looking for new books. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!